Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Picture a line on a map that isn't drawn in ink, but in salt and foam. It is 90 miles of treacherous, shark-infested water where the Caribbean heat meets the icy chill of the Cold War. In the early 1960s, the Florida Straits became the most scrutinized stretch of ocean on the planet. While the world watched the skies for missile, the real war was being fought inches above the waterline. The air smells of diesel fuel, sea salt, and the metallic tang of fear. In the windowless situation rooms of JM Wave, the agency's massive station in Miami, which I have a whole nother episode on, the crisis is mounting. The Castro regime is tightening its grip, and the agency's most valuable stay-behind assets, generals, code breakers, and double agents, are being hunted. There are no runways left for them to use. The only exit is the liquid frontier. You are standing on the deck of a black-bottom boat, a vessel that technically doesn't exist, painted a shade of blue that vanishes into the night sea. The setting is a theater of extreme contrast. On one side, the neon glow of Miami's skyline. On the other, the suffocating darkness of a Cuban mangrove swamp where a high-level asset is waiting with a flickering flashlight. This is the era of the mosquito fleet, where maritime infiltration was an art form practiced by men who spoke in light signals and engine-coded pulses. The silence of the ocean is your only ally, and every rogue wave feels like a Cuban patrol boat closing in. You feel the deck vibrate beneath your boots, a low-frequency hum that resonates in your teeth as the pilot nudges the throttle just enough to maintain steerage without creating a telltale wake. You're crouched low, salt spray stinging your eyes, peering through a first-generation starlight scope that paints the world in ghostly shades of emerald. To your left, a paramilitary officer checks the action on his grease-coated carbine, his movements silent and practiced. The humidity is a physical weight, pressing the scent of wet canvas and gun oil into your lungs. You aren't just an observer, you are a ghost in the machine, waiting for the precise second when a single blink of a red lens from the tree line signals that the package is ready for pickup. You are witnessing the operational birth of WIDOW, a program that treated the sea not as a barrier, but as a cloaking device. This wasn't just about boats, it was about the architecture of the escape. In the damp holds of these vessels, the agency was testing the limits of stealth engineering and human endurance. The weight of a nation's secrets is being carried in the trembling hands of a man hidden in a fish crate. This is the heartbeat of the maritime underground, the no-fail mission where the price of a mistake isn't just a lost boat, but a lost future for the Caribbean. Why WIDOW? Records indicate that the designation was chosen within the maritime branch of the Directorate of Plans. The name was a dark operational joke among the water rats, the operatives who ran the boats, because the missions were conducted in total radio silence, often during the most dangerous weather conditions to avoid radar. It was joked that the program was making widows of the agents' wives back in Florida. Mechanically, W was a prefix sometimes associated with maritime and West Indies operations during this specific cycle of the 1960s. Before we commit to this liquid marriage of statecraft and saltwater, we'd best lift the veil on the technical hardware that kept these widows from becoming actual ones. WIDOW utilized V-hull speedboats powered by souped-up Cadillac engines to outrun Cuban interceptors. Isn't that cool? The program employed ex-smugglers, also cool, who knew every hidden cove and coral head in the Keys. CIA technicians developed luminescent marker buoys that were only visible through infrared goggles. WIDOW utilized silent running protocols, shutting down all non-essential electronics to minimize electromagnetic signatures. The program used motherships, disguised commercial trawlers, to launch smaller extraction craft near the 12-mile limit. Asset packaging involved hiding human targets in false bulkheads treated with chemical masking agents to fool search dogs. WIDOW coordinated with the Coast Guard to ensure green light corridors for returning vessels. The program utilized underwater scooters, DPVs, for agents to swim assets out to waiting boats in shallow waters. Midnight-Rendezvous points were changed every 48 hours based on coded music broadcast over Miami radio stations. WIDOW maintained a marine repair facility in Key West that was a complete front operation. The program used radar deflecting paint on the hulls of its primary extraction fleet. WIDOW utilized dead drop markers shaped like natural sea sponges to hide encoded instructions for assets. Extraction windows were calculated based on the precise moon phase and tidal flow of the Old Bahama Channel. The program used exploding bolt scuttling charges to ensure no boat could be captured and reverse engineered. WIDOW employed female operatives as diversion couples on leisure craft to scout extraction points. The program utilized short burst transmissions that lasted less than 1 second to avoid detection finding equipment. Asset verification was conducted via signal mirrors using specific WIDOW patterns. WIDOW operated floating safe houses on abandoned oil rigs or barges in international waters. The program used bioluminescent analysis to avoid waters where glowing plankton would give away the boat's wake. WIDOW attempted a submersible extraction using a modified sealed delivery vehicle. The program maintained a currency inventory of pre-revolutionary Cuban pesos to fund assets during their escape. Diversionary strikes were often staged miles away from the actual extraction point to draw the Cuban Navy's attention. WIDOW utilized high-resolution sonar to map the seafloor for hidden resting points during patrol sweeps. The program used custom mufflers that cooled engine exhaust under the waterline to reduce thermal signatures. WIDOW recruited local fishermen as lookouts in exchange for special import goods. Post-extraction debriefing occurred on the boat itself to capture hot intelligence before reaching the U.S. mainland. The program utilized shortwave transmissions to coordinate with ground teams. WIDOW utilized fake cargo manifests identifying vessels as scientific research platforms. The program used water-soluble ink for all mission maps. If the boat was boarded, the evidence could be tossed overboard and erased instantly. WIDOW conducted over 200 successful extractions between 1961 and 1964. Sea-to-air recovery systems known as the Fulton Skyhook, which I have a whole episode on, were tested as a backup for the WIDOW program. The program utilized camouflage docks hidden in the thick mangroves of the Everglades. WIDOW utilized medical emergency cover stories to enter foreign ports if pursued by the Cuban Navy. The program used magnetic homing beacons that assets would attach to the bottom of target vessels to track them. WIDOW influenced the creation of the modern Navy SEALs through shared maritime techniques. The program used night vision starlight scopes, the first of their kind for shore surveillance. WIDOW utilized drug running routes as a way to blend into existing illicit traffic. The program used collapsible rafts that could be inflated by compressed CO2 in under 5 seconds. WIDOW maintained a disposal site for decommissioned boats in the deep Atlantic Trench. The program used signal flares that burned in the ultraviolet spectrum, invisible to the naked eye. WIDOW utilized underwater caches of fuel and food anchored to the seabed for long-range missions. The program used synthetic fog generators to mask the approach of extraction craft to the shoreline. WIDOW utilized acoustic deception devices that mimicked the sound of a large naval convoy to scare off smaller patrol boats. The program used bird call signals for final ground-to-sea confirmation in the mangroves. WIDOW employed lock-picking experts to infiltrate Cuban marina facilities and borrow boats for extractions. The program used encapsulated messages hidden inside hollow fishing lures. WIDOW utilized radio triangulation to find assets whose transmitters were failing. The program used high-speed film for shoreline photography, even in near-total darkness. WIDOW utilized weather balloon radar decoys to clutter Cuban coastal defense screens. The program used custom props, propellers, designed for zero cavitation to remain silent under sonar. WIDOW utilized Civil Air Patrol pilots as high-altitude relays for boat-to-base communications. The program used inflatable dummies on deck to make a 2-person crew look like a full civilian family from a distance. WIDOW utilized heavy metal ballast that could be dropped to instantly increase the boat's speed by 10 knots. The program used towed sonar arrays to listen for the distinctive propeller signature of Cuban destroyers. WIDOW utilized identity-shifting holes, removable panels that changed the boat's color and name mid-voyage. A quote from a declassified internal memo from the CIA Maritime Branch, which, quite frankly, you all know that I'm scared of the Technical Services Division. But I love the Maritime Branch. They got the coolest stuff. Anyway, here we go. It's a quote. "The sea does not leave footprints. If we do our job correctly, the asset simply vanishes from the shore and reappears in Miami as if by magic." A quote from a declassified operational review of JM Wave, which again, I have another episode on. That's the Miami station. "WIDOW was the only lifeline left for the men who knew too much. Without that maritime corridor, the Cuban resistance would have been blind and deaf." Declassified briefing to the director of the CIA, dated 1962. "We are operating in the gray space between international law and naval warfare. Every mission is a gamble against the tide and the radar." Quote from a declassified maritime operations training manual. "Extraction is not a rescue. It is a tactical withdrawal under fire. The ocean is just another type of cover." A quote from a retired WIDOW case officer, and it literally says that, but it doesn't give his name or her name. "The success of the maritime program was built on the backs of men who didn't mind being alone in the dark with 100 miles of ocean and a dying engine." A quote from a declassified National Security Council intelligence directive. "Continuous efforts should be made to develop clandestine maritime capabilities, ... including the use of high-speed craft and specialized landing techniques." And a quote from a declassified CIA handbook on marine infiltration. "In maritime operations, secrecy is primarily a function of the vessel's ability to blend with normal coastal traffic until the moment of the strike." End quote. The most protected sections of the WIDOW archive are found in folder M912 titled Liaison Cleanup and Maritime Casualties. This volume consists of roughly 280 pages that are entirely white blocked. When we see these redactions, the agency cites specific FOIA exemptions. The primary shield is Exemption B1, protecting information classified to protect national security, particularly the identities of foreign naval officers who were turned by the agency. Then there is Exemption B3, referring to the CIA Act of 1949, which hides the intelligence sources and methods, specifically the technical specs of the Submersible-Shadows. I suspect these pages detail the failed rendezvous of 1962, where a boat was lost and the agency allegedly sanitized the survivors to prevent the capture of crypto equipment. Furthermore, I suspect this section contains the names of current Caribbean politicians who were originally WIDOW assets. Finally, the redactions on the ordnance disposal section fuel speculation that the program may have mined Cuban harbors to protect its extraction routes, an act that would have been a direct act of war. In the salt spray of the Straits, the shadow theories are born. For instance, there's the ghost fleet theory. Speculation suggests that WIDOW never actually ended, but simply moved further offshore. Theorists believe the agency still maintains a fleet of unmarked submarines in the Caribbean for the extraction of high-value targets from modern socialist regimes. Then there's the Bermuda Triangle speculation. Some believe the agency used the Bermuda Triangle as a cover for lost missions, claiming boats vanished when they were actually destroyed during botched extractions. Then there's the underwater base theory. It's a persistent one among the conspiracy enthusiasts, and it suggests that WIDOW utilized a submerged mobile base, a secret underwater habitat where assets could be processed before being moved to the surface. And then there's the MK Ultra at sea speculation. This theory posits that the high-level assets were chemically reprogrammed during the long voyages back to Florida, ensuring that they only remembered the parts of their story that the agency wanted them to tell. Was WIDOW a success? Tactically, it was a maritime masterclass. The program achieved an incredibly high success-to-casualty ratio in one of the world's most contested naval environments. It proved that a small boat strategy could defeat a large Navy blockade through the use of speed, stealth, and superior intelligence. WIDOW saved hundreds of individuals who were critical to the U.S. understanding of the Soviet presence in Cuba. It validated the clandestine maritime support model, showing the sea could be utilized for deep infiltration just as effectively as the air. By industrializing the Midnight-Rendezvous, the agency turned a desperate survival tactic into a repeatable technical operation that could be deployed anywhere in the world's coastal regions. Strategically, like so many things, it was a bit of a double-edged sword. While the program won the battle of extraction, it arguably lost the battle of long-term stability. The sheer volume of high-level defections orchestrated by WIDOW may have hardened the Castro regime, leading to a permanent state of siege mentality in Cuba. Furthermore, the program's resilience on ex-smugglers and criminal networks created a gray infrastructure in Miami that would eventually contribute to the massive narcotics trade of the 1970s and 80s. The operational arrogance fostered by WIDOW's success may have also contributed to the overconfidence seen in later maritime disasters. Ultimately, WIDOW proved that you could extract a leader, but you couldn't extract an ideology, leaving the U.S. with a wealth of intelligence, but a neighbor that was more hostile than ever. As far as operational and technological breakthroughs go, however, there were quite a few thanks to WIDOW, such as stealth hole geometry, which began as the WIDOW practice of using low-profile holes and radar-deflecting paint to avoid Cuban coastal defense. Today, this has evolved into the stealth ships used by global navies. For humanity, this technology has been adapted into fuel-efficient hull designs for commercial shipping, using the same aerodynamic principles to reduce water resistance and carbon emissions. In the military and intelligence community, it is the foundation of the Zumwalt class destroyers and special operations craft, which can operate in zones while appearing no larger than a fishing boat on adversary radar screens. Acoustic signature suppression was pioneered by WIDOW through the use of underwater exhaust systems and zero cavitation propellers to evade sonar. For humanity, this has revolutionized the marine biology field, allowing researchers to study sensitive sea life without disturbing them with engine noise. In the military and intelligence sphere, it has led to the silent submarines of the modern era, which use tile coatings and pump jet propulsion to move through the ocean completely undetected by the sound gates of rival nations. Infrared maritime navigation evolved from the program's use of starlight scopes and luminescent buoys to see in the dark. Today, for humanity, this is the night vision technology used by search and rescue teams to find missing boaters in pitch black conditions. For the intelligence community, this has progressed into multispectral imaging from drones and satellites, allowing for the real-time tracking of dark vessels, ships that turn off their transponders, across the entire globe, making the hidden highways of WIDOW visible to the eye in the sky. And autonomous underwater extraction protocols, which grew from the program's early testing of submersible scooters and underwater caches. For humanity, this tech powers the autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, used to inspect fiber optic cables and offshore wind farm foundations. In the intelligence community, this has become the Black Wing program, drones that can be launched from submerged platforms to perform coastal surveillance or personal retrieval without a human crew ever entering the danger zone, perfecting the no-fail mission through the elimination of human error. The history of WIDOW is a journey to the edge of the world where the salt air meets the black box of state secrets. It was a program that asked, how do you save a man when the entire ocean is a cage? It functioned as the ultimate liquid exit, proving that for the agency, no shore was too far and no night was too dark to reach those who held the keys to history. The technical brilliance of the Mosquito fleet was matched only by the operational void it left behind. Every boat that slipped through the straits was a victory for human intelligence, but every wake left behind was a scar on the diplomatic landscape. We now live in the post-WIDOW world where the liquid frontier is watched by autonomous eyes, making the daring seat of the pants extractions of the 1960s seem like a lost epic from a bygone era. As we look back at the silent shore, we see more than just a logistical success. We see the birth of the maritime shadow state. The ability to move people and information across borders without digital footprints or border checks remains the ultimate goal of every intelligence agency on Earth. WIDOW provided the wet blueprint for this reality, turning the ocean into a stealth platform that remains the final frontier of clandestine operations, in my opinion. Furthermore, we must recognize that the WIDOW's spirit of improvisation is what allowed the agency to survive the most dangerous moments of the Cold War. The water rats who ran these missions weren't just sailors, they were boundary breakers who understood that the rules of the surface didn't apply in the midnight deep. This culture of maritime defiance continues to influence how global powers project force into the contested waters of the modern world. The real lesson of the program is that in the world of high-stakes extraction, the most powerful weapon isn't a boat or sonar array. It is the will to vanish into the spray and return with the truth. The silent shore is not a place on a map. It is a state of mind where the mission is the only thing that matters, and the ocean is just the medium for the miracle. The ocean never tells secrets, but it always keeps records. In a midnight rendezvous, the light signal you don't recognize is the only one you should fear. Stealth is not about being invisible, it's about being unremarkable. And remember, the tide always turns, but the asset only gets one chance to leave. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we'll be examining QR Bird, the expansive and high-stakes intelligence operations focused on the internal politics and regime stability of the Gulf states. We'll look at the palace infiltration, the oil lobby liaisons, and the secret succession management of the Middle East. Join us next time for the Sands of Power. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.